Hi friends, in this video, let's talk about 10 surprising ways to grow healthy hair. And your hair, it should grow 6 inches by the end of the year, but that takes a lot of energy for your body to do. I know genes, it can strongly influence how quickly your hair thins and the age at which you're going to lose your hair. But there's so many non-genetic factors that can cause hair loss and thinning. The foundation of healthy hair is in your diet. So number 1, eat a balanced diet and focus on avoiding nutritional deficiencies. Many people, however, only focus on getting protein. And there's actually quite a long list of nutrients, and missing one of these can stop hair growth. Now, this list isn't even a complete list. So if you're on a diet, you really should evaluate that carefully. Protein, however, is very important. It makes not just your hair, but your skin and nails. Keratin, a protein, is really the structure of your hair. But it's not just eating any protein. Keratin is made out of essential amino acids. Now, you would think that eating these essential amino acids in your diet would be the most important ones to focus on. But that's not the case, because the most crucial amino acid in keratin is cysteine, which makes 10 to 14% of the total hair content. Do you like to curl your hair? You can only do that because of strong bonds made by amino acids like cysteine. Cysteine contains a high amount of sulfur, and sulfur helps you to form disulfide bonds. These bonds give your hair its strength, elasticity, it's resistant to water, as well as organic solvents, and its toughness. They give keratin its rigidity and resistance to grooming and styling. However, your body needs cysteine in order to detox. So we have this competition. Cysteine is crucial, an integral part of the glutathione redox system. Your brain, liver, muscle, basically every cell in your body needs that system to survive and to thrive. And so when your body is under stress, whether that's physical or emotional, when you're exposed to more toxins, or when you catch a cold, or when you exercise more, you will need more cysteine. So if you're not eating enough in your diet, your body will have to choose between survival and detox or growing hair. And between the three, it will always favor survival and sacrifice hair growth. This is why people lose their hair when they get sick, or when they go on chemotherapy, or even when they're mentally stressed. Some people have noticed when they supplement with N-acetylcysteine, really for other reasons, that their hair and nail gets shinier, firmer. That's because you're helping out the keratin. In 2020, like most of my colleagues, I stopped going to the hairstylist. And initially, it was because I didn't have any time. I was simply working too much. And honestly, as my hair grew out, combing it was such a chore. It was my least enjoyable thing to do. So I started putting it in a ponytail, and then I realized it actually helped me hold up my N95 mask. So that's why now I have long hair. But when long hair falls, it's so much more noticeable because it's such a drain plugger. Now keep in mind, it's normal to have 50 to 100 strands of hair fall off every day. A strand of hair has a cycle of life which includes 3 phases. The anagen phase, that's the growth phase, and that can last for 3 to 7 years, and it determines really the length of your hair. There is a catagen phase. That's a transitional phase that lasts about 2 to 3 weeks, and during which hair stops growing. And that's also when the hair follicle begins to shrink. Then there's a telogen phase, the resting phase. This lasts about 3 months, and it ends in the shedding of hair follicles. Now, the backbone of hair growth is really getting enough protein. If you are gaining weight, you don't have anything to worry about because you're likely eating enough protein, since the average American eats twice as much protein than they need. Diversity, though, is the key to health. And despite gaining weight, most people still have inadequate amounts of at least one other essential nutrient. And having subpar levels of one single vitamin or mineral can really negatively affect the health of your hair. Now, the one thing that most people also struggle with daily, and that you can actually change right now, is to stay hydrated. So number 2, drink plenty of water, especially if it's hot outside or if you are more physically active. Now, the goal is to drink between 9 to 13 8-ounce cups a day. If your body doesn't get enough hydration, you may notice that your lips and mouth are dry and that your skin will begin to tint. And if this is the case, your hair is not getting enough hydration. Think of your hair like a plant in a pot. If you don't water that plant, it's going to wilt and eventually it will die. And without water, you're not going to be able to get nutrients to your hair like amino acids or vitamins or minerals. It simply will not grow. So when you eat, there's really two kinds of foods. Ones that reduce inflammation, and that promotes hair growth, and ones that increase inflammation, and that can help decrease hair growth. Avoid inflammatory foods. That is really critical if you want to have good hair. And that's why it's important to stay away from high fructose corn syrup, like sodas, drinks, desserts, sauces, yogurts, and breakfast cereal. It's also sometimes found in bread. So number 3, read your ingredients and avoid highly processed food with added fructose. Now there's a lot of confusion with fructose, since fructose is a natural sugar found in fruit. Eating whole fruit is perfectly fine because there's so little fructose. It's also trapped in fiber, and fruit is really mostly water. There's tons of also vitamins and minerals that support your hair to grow, and all of that reduces inflammation. Now, you may get a false sense of security when you see a normal blood sugar after you check it when you eat fructose or sucrose, because the fructose is actually not measured. Only the glucose is. Fructose and glucose are very different molecules. One is essential for life, glucose, and the other is essentially a toxin at the amount that we're eating today. That's fructose. The metabolism of fructose significantly differs from glucose, which is the preferred fuel in your body. Even when you're eating fat or fat adapted, if you give yourself any glucose, that glucose through insulin shuts off that fat metabolism. But when you eat a whole apple, it actually takes a lot of time to digest it. And at any given time, your gut microbe, that's helping you digest your food. And so some of it, it's never going to even be absorbed. When you feed your gut microbe healthy fruits with fructose, healthy microbes will flourish. But when you feed it pure fructose, you're basically starving the healthy microbes. And by starving them, they're going to die off. Take a look at this chart. The study took 12 people, both lean and obese, and they had them change their diet every week to see what happens to their stool. The first week, they put them on a low fructose diet. That means they didn't eat any fruit. The second week, they were asked to eat a high fruit diet. Third week, they went back to eating a low fructose diet. And then during the fourth week, they were asked to drink high fructose corn syrup. See how their gut microbes were going up and down depending on their diet? The microbes also correlated with changes in their blood. They measured their cholesterol and liver enzymes. So this means that the source of fructose is critical to get right. High amount of processed fructose not only can negatively change your microbiome, but it is directly absorbed through your intestinal lining and gets transported directly to your liver via the portal vein. Once in the liver, fructose is taken up readily by hepatocytes, even quicker than glucose, because fructose is not regulated by insulin. It doesn't have to wait for a gatekeeper. Fructose is then phosphorylated by the enzyme fructokinase to form fructose 1-phosphate. This step actually uses 1 ATP. So this means it takes you energy for you to metabolize fructose, unlike glucose, which gives you energy. That's one reason why you feel tired after drinking and eating beverages with fructose, or even with sucrose. Then that fructose gets immediately trapped into the liver cell. Eventually, enzymes will break up fructose 1-phosphate into 2 other molecules, and one of them is glyceraldehyde, which uses 2 ATP molecules. Fructose becomes fructose 1,6-bisphosphates that can be turned into pyruvate, glucose, or fat. So you're eating a carb that actually uses up 2 energy molecules. That's fructose. Normally, a carb like glucose, whether you eat it or your body makes it, it makes you ATP energy. It at least can make you 2 molecules. If you don't have oxygen, and if you don't have thymine, you only make 2 molecules. But in the presence of oxygen and thymine, you're going to make 36 molecules of ATP from 1 single molecule of glucose. So when you're sick or you're feeling tired, and if you're just going to randomly drink like that high sugary beverage, that fructose will make you more tired and fatigued because it's using up your energy instead of giving it to you. And believe it or not, my mom, bless her soul, she used to give me soda to drink whenever I was sick. This was a really long time ago, and she wanted to make sure I was well hydrated, but I refused to drink water because my throat hurt. I too, as a parent, I struggle sometimes, and sometimes you just give up. And I think I gave her such a hard time that the only thing she could think of was to get me to drink soda. And I think that got me addicted to sugar, and it also gave me a ton of visceral fat. Intuitively, you would think that using up energy would help a person lose weight. But unfortunately, this doesn't happen when you're eating a lot of fructose because most of that can be converted into acetyl-CoA, a precursor for fatty acid synthesis, which then gets packaged into triglycerides. So that's why when you're eating a lot of sugar, you're going to have high triglycerides. And ultimately, that becomes stored as fat. Fructose can easily overload the liver, promoting de novo lipogenesis or a production of fat from non-fat sources. This all contributes to fatty liver, dyslipidemia, abnormal blood lipid levels, and it can also increase uric acid levels to cause gout. So what does this have to do with hair growth? Well, all those diseases that I just rattled off, they contribute to insulin resistance, which is linked to hormonal imbalances and an increase in androgens or male hormones. Androgens cause hair follicles to shrink and hair to thin. In addition, fructose can undergo glycation reactions more readily than glucose, forming advanced glycation end products, AGEs, at much faster rate. AGEs weaken the collagen in the skin around the follicles, affecting the follicle's structural integrity and potentially leading to hair loss. Now, what's even worse is that when you fill up with processed foods, this displaces more nutritious foods in the diet, and this all leads to nutritional deficiencies and vitamins and minerals, all essential for hair growth, especially zinc, iron, and B vitamins. So number 4, check your iron levels. Menstruating women tend to have lower iron levels, and so it's really important to get that checked with your doctor, as if you are anemic, that could be easily corrected. However, if you aren't iron deficient, it's not a good idea to just take iron supplements. Having excessive iron can lead to excessive side effects. Now, besides constipation, high iron is actually toxic. It can irritate the gut to cause ulcers, and heme iron from red meat is a risk factor for colon cancer. About 1 in 300 non-Hispanic white people in America have a condition called hereditary hemochromatosis. That is when they have an iron overload. Most patients are diagnosed late, between 40 to 60 years old, and women are diagnosed older because they have been menstruating throughout their lives. Excess iron, it deposits in the wrong organs, leading to inflammation. Iron has been found in amyloid plaques in Alzheimer's patients. Iron can cause diabetes, cirrhosis, joint destruction, cardiac symptoms, hyperpigmentation, and mess with your gonads to cause impotence. So why does iron, something so essential, cause so many problems? Well, that's because iron triggers your immune system, and your immune system is all over your body in every organ. It's even around your hair follicles. So macrophages are one type of innate immune cells that's your first line of defense. But when it accumulates iron, they're less able to gobble up germs. Hence, an overload of iron can lead to lower immunity. This can predispose you to certain infectious diseases that actually thrive on iron. These are called siderophilic bacteria. So if you have hemochromatosis, you should not eat raw seafood like oysters, raw eggs, or even deli meats, or even soft cheeses. These are all high-risk foods that often contain life-threatening pathogens. And when you get an infection, even if you survive, your immune system will be inflamed, causing the lack of resources to support your hair growth. This is why I don't recommend taking a random multivitamin with iron unless your personal doctor has prescribed it. But if you're looking to increase your iron stores, make sure you pre-soak and thoroughly cook your beans to reduce phytates, which can significantly reduce iron absorption. And to increase iron absorption, eat some vitamin C-rich foods with your meals. Zinc is another essential mineral, and we have a global zinc deficiency crisis. So number 5, are you eating enough zinc in your diet? It is estimated that 2 billion people are deficient worldwide. The World Health Organization has estimated that 31% of the global population is deficient in zinc, especially in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. Zinc deficiency is considered to be the 5th leading risk factor for diseases in developing countries and the 11th worldwide. So even mild deficiency can cause hair loss and poor skin healing. So if you have cut yourself and you're not healing within the next day or two, and now it's been several days and weeks, there's at least one nutritional problem. Severe zinc deficiency can lead to impaired immunity, skin diseases, and it can affect even how you think. If you're suffering from skin and hair issues, make sure you have an adequate amount of zinc. Now, if you're taking collagen to maximize your skin health and you haven't maximized zinc in your diet, well, that collagen is only going to go so far. Zinc is an essential cofactor to your protein, fat, and DNA and RNA metabolism. Your immune cell, the neutrophil, that's the fastest growing cell in your body, and you need that zinc to make more neutrophils. Without zinc, you're essentially starving your immune soldiers. They are the guardians of your health, not just against germs, but also against cancer. Now, I've spoken in several videos about eating foods rich in antioxidants to power your glutathione redox system. You actually have another antioxidant system called the superoxide dismutase that requires zinc in every step to work. And when you get enough zinc, even if you have to supplement, you will have some left over for your hair care, and it can even improve a condition called alopecia areata. Now, we live in a country where we have easy access to nutritional supplements. A supplement becomes essential when you don't get enough of it in your diet. And the problem is people confuse deficiency with inadequacy. We call it deficiency when you get a disease. Do you want a disease to get a diagnosis? No, that's illogical logic. So when was the last time you got a zinc level checked or looked at your diet, see how much zinc you have in it? Yeah, see the problem? I've never been offered a zinc level myself, but I know how to gauge my symptoms. And for me, my hands are like the sentinel chicken. I have to wash them so many times at work, and then I have to wash the dishes. So it gets abused with all these chemicals. And that's why I take a daily zinc supplement. And if you want to know what I take, I have a link in the show notes below. Zinc is a necessary mineral for wound care. Zinc deficiency is so bad in many countries that governments have initiated zinc supplementation and fortification programs, especially among high-risk groups. Number 6 is to get an adequate amount of magnesium. Now, magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions that are also critical for blood sugar and blood pressure. Adequate amount of magnesiums can help prevent deadly heart attacks. Leafy beans, greens, seeds, whole grains are the richest sources of magnesium. But leafy greens, they also have another powerhouse pressure reducer, and those are called nitrates. Now, did you know that your bones store 60% of your body's magnesium? So when you aren't eating enough foods rich in magnesium, guess where you're withdrawing that magnesium from? Your bones. Taking magnesium from the bones can weaken the scaffolding and structure of the bone, especially when you don't replace it. It's like borrowing pieces of wood from the frame of your home and then never replacing it. Do you really want to live in that home during an earthquake? Well, an earthquake happens to the body when a person falls. So the integrity of the bone structure, if that's compromised, you're not going to know until you get an earthquake and fall. But it will be compromised to maintain normal blood magnesium levels. Again, it's because it's involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in your body at any given minute. So many systems depend on magnesium, and that's why there needs to be a constant stock readily available. Have you ever heard of Jelly Belly? Apparently, America's favorite flavor is berry cherry, and number 2 is buttered popcorn. I would have never guessed that. So if you had a bin of buttered popcorn versus berry cherry, the cherry one would be eaten up first since more people would like to eat it. And that's what's happening with magnesium. 300 different reactions all compete for this one mineral. And if you don't have enough of it, well, some of the reactions won't be able to be completed. You may or may not have symptoms from it, but you will have health consequences. And in your bone, this process is silent until you get a fracture. In your heart, you can get arrhythmia or persistent high blood pressure in your blood vessels. This then actually stresses your heart and can make it large and inefficient to pump. Magnesium is also critical to allow other minerals like calcium and potassium to move into cells. So hence when doctors try to replace potassium intravenously, patients can't build up stores until there is an adequate amount of magnesium. Now, if you have blood sugar problems and if you're worried about glucose, then you really need to make sure your magnesium is optimal. Magnesium is an integral part of insulin activity and glucose control. So many people suffer from neurological conditions, and magnesium, well, that's important to regulate neurotransmitters, which actually send messages throughout the body and brain, your nervous system, and to muscles. Adequate magnesium is known to have a calming effect on the nervous system. The nervous system, I had mentioned, is necessary to move muscles. And that's why when people get polio, a virus that attacks the nervous system, they can get paralysis and post-polio syndrome that involves muscle pain, weakness, and fatigue. This virus actually reproduces inside motor neurons, and intense inflammation happens, and this damages those nerve cells. Polio can also easily cross the blood-brain barrier and attack the brain and spinal cord. And perhaps the most famous person who survived polio is Franklin D. Roosevelt, our 32nd president. He contracted polio in 1921 at the age of 39, and that left him permanently paralyzed from the waist down. The famous Canadian singer-songwriter Neil Young, he also contracted polio during the last major outbreak in Ontario in 1951. Now today, medical doctors, neurosurgeons, and scientists, they're actually trying to cure brain cancer by infecting cancer cells with a recombinant oncolytic poliovirus. Look at this image. This patient has glioblastoma, and by injecting polio into that tumor or that cancer, it had activated the immune system and killed the cancer cell. Well, what does viruses have to do with hair loss? Well, because when you get an infection or even a fever, that causes an intense inflammation in your body, and this results in hair shedding. This is called telogen effluvium. The symptoms are an abrupt onset of hair loss that usually lasts less than 6 months. Now, when you pull on your hair, if at least 4 hairs get pulled out, you're in the acute shedding phase. Keep in mind, viruses are not the only culprit. Bacteria like syphilis can also silently cause hair loss. Number 7 is really to avoid infections. Now, number 8 is another B vitamin important for your nervous system, and that is vitamin B12. Low vitamin B12 impairs carbohydrate and protein metabolism and is also associated with low glutathione blood levels. Here's a list of conditions that put people at risk of having low vitamin B12, and a daily supplement is recommended. Now, you probably don't want to wait until you have symptoms or a deficiency to replace vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is best absorbed when taken with other B vitamins and magnesium. Now, did you know that vitamin B12 is exclusively a vitamin made by microbes? So animals get their vitamin B12 from the microbes that live in their gut. Animal meats with the highest vitamin B12 levels are the kidney and liver, which basically serve as filter organs to trap a variety of things. What do you think about fish filters? You think that's kind of disgusting? That's kind of what I think about organ meats, because they are filters for the animal. It just so happens that it can store some extra vitamins, but you don't have to get it from eating organ meats. You can actually get vitamin B12 as a supplement so that you don't have to collect toxic levels of mercury, cadmium, and dioxins. I don't think that trade-off is worth it. I would rather take a supplement free of toxins. Now, did you know that the discovery of vitamin B12 won a Nobel Prize? That was given to the English chemist Dorothy Hodgkins in 1964. And it's fascinating. Her husband was the cousin to another Nobel laureate, Sir Alan Hodgkin. And Sir Alan Hodgkin was related to Thomas Hodgkins. Have you heard of Hodgkin's lymphoma? That's a lymphatic cancer named after Thomas Hodgkins. Now, needless to say, this is an amazing scientific family. So why is B12 so important for life and the health of your hair? Well, besides allowing the trains of oxygen, those red blood cells, to grow, vitamin B12 is critical for healthy arteries. That means for blood flow. Have you heard of homocysteine? Homocysteine is a type of amino acid that, when at high levels, are very inflammatory to your arteries. My son loves taking the train, and once he got ready, he was so excited. He went to the train station. He was right in front of the ocean because the train station was next to the beach, and he wanted to ride the train, but that day the train was canceled because the tracks were broken. And homocysteine can do that to your arteries. It can break the train tracks. And when the arteries are plugged up from inflammation, neither red blood cells delivering oxygens or nutrients can get through. And if they can't get through, they're not going to reach your hair follicles. So many diseases and vitamin deficiencies can actually raise homocysteine levels. And all of these things have been associated with hair loss. Now, number 9 is to make sure you are getting enough selenium. Selenium is a trace element that plays a crucial role in the health of your hair, amongst lots of other biological functions. It's involved in antioxidant defense, thyroid hormone metabolism, and immune function. Now, it helps to protect hair cells from damage by free radicals and oxidative stress. This process also needs normal levels of thyroid hormones, otherwise your hair is not going to grow. And you just so happen to need selenium to make thyroid hormones. Have you heard of selenoproteins? That's why you need selenium and amino acids. Together, they form selenoproteins. Glutathione peroxidase is actually a selenoprotein, which is an integral part to reduce inflammation, regulate your thyroid hormone, wound healing, and fertility. Selenoproteins are necessary to help the body detoxify stress, especially from heavy metals and other oxidative toxins. Even though you don't need much of it, selenium is essential. It's obtained by eating plants and animals, but you have to have it in the soil. And like everything else, you have to have just the right amount. Too much, and the plant will die. Too little, and then you're going to eat plant without selenium and become selenium deficient. Now, not all plants accumulate a significant amount of selenium. These plants have a higher level of selenium. Have you heard of Keshan Disease? In the 1930s in Keshan County, China, local doctors observed an unusually high incidence of fatal heart conditions among their local residents. It primarily affected women, especially of childbearing age, and children. However, it wasn't until 1979 that the connection between poor selenium and heart disease was proven. But there seemed to be a seasonal variation of when the people presented, and ultimately a second culprit was identified, Coxsackie B virus. Now, clearly, when you lack selenium, glutathione levels go down in your blood, and when you don't have glutathione, it makes a person susceptible to all kinds of infections like Coxsackie B. Now, you've probably never heard of Coxsackie B virus, but it's actually a very common virus. Have you ever gotten hand, foot, and mouth disease? Or maybe a sore in your mouth? Or a sore throat? Well, these are all common symptoms of enteroviruses. Coxsackie B is an enterovirus, and so is polio. These viruses are all primarily transmitted from person to person through fecal-oral routes. Basically, you touch something contaminated or eat or drink something contaminated. So this is why eating raw oysters isn't a good idea. In college, I visited Taiwan and I played in a water park. That was a bad mistake. The day after that excursion, I broke out with a rash in my hands and feet, and I had ulcers in my mouth. I got hand, foot, and mouth disease from that water park. But you don't have to go to a water park to get it. You can just touch something directly from an infected person or indirectly when that person actually touched something and then you touched it after that person. So surfaces, food, water, they're all can be infected with enteroviruses. That's why it's a good idea to wash your hands before you eat and wash all your fresh produce before you eat them. And when you're sick, cover your mouth and nose, please, because that cough and sneeze, that can go several feet out. It's better to use a mask or even your shirt because your hands, they don't cover much up, and neither do your arms. All of these are gut viruses, hence the name entero, meaning intestine, and they attack certain tissues. Coxsackie B virus likes to attack the heart, brain, pancreas, and liver. It gives people an assortment of various diseases. Hence, number 7 is, again, stay away from germs. Now, the backup is to make sure you have a robust army when you do meet germs, since it's nearly impossible to avoid germs for life. Otherwise, you may get telogen effluvium, losing patches of hair in a few months. And remember, there's no guarantee getting one infection prevents you from getting a second infection. And by the way, there's over 100 different types of enteroviruses, so there's a lot to get. And as a part of your immune defense, it's also very important to sleep well every night. So number 10, work on your sleep. Have you noticed you feel kind of yucky when you don't sleep well? Your hormone levels actually fluctuate depending on how well you have slept. A stress hormone called cortisol rises due to poor sleep. As a result, blood sugar will rise too. Cortisol is a potent steroid. Doctors can prescribe steroids like prednisone or dexamethasone for a variety of reasons. There's actually lots of different oral steroids and IV formulations of steroids. They can also be taken intranasally and used topically. And the way steroids work is that they suppress the immune system. And as a result, the body's natural repair mechanisms are inhibited. Really, it prevents inflammation. And you have to have inflammation to heal. So steroids, they have a lot of unwanted side effects, including shifting the hair growth cycle into the telogen phase, which is a resting phase where hair begins to fall out. Hence the name telogen effluvium. And this can be caused by taking prolonged steroids. Now, this can happen in a few weeks or months after starting oral steroids. You may notice that the hair will become finer and more brittle. And at the same time, you may start growing hair in unwanted places. That's called hirsutism. That's when hair grows in your face, back, and arms. Now, if you get deep sleep, your body actually increases the release of growth hormones. This aids in cell regeneration and hair follicle growth. Additionally, sleep is crucial for protein synthesis and immunity, which both are essential for fostering optimal hair growth and preventing hair loss. Your body needs to sleep in order to make immune molecules like antibodies, which are proteins that serve as bullets and blockers of germs. You have antibodies called IgM and IgG that mark the invaders for your immune cells to capture germs. And this is the idea of getting a shot or pill that triggers an immune response. However, this elaborate system, it doesn't work well if you don't sleep well. And this is why if you don't get a good night's sleep, then you really should reschedule that shot. Now, if you want to learn more details on how to boost your immunity, watch the next video.